Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Younger. I teach physics and astronomy here at TCC. I've been teaching here for about 6 years and been teaching in total about 20 years plus. You're probably wondering what I look like if you haven't had me before, so I thought I'd show you a picture of me. Yep, that's me right there. Okay, that might be a slight lie, but I have been told that I look like this guy. That's probably a little more accurate. Anyways, what I really look like is this guy right here. Yep, that's me. I normally keep my face a little bit more shaved than that. Here's a full picture of that cool shirt I'm wearing. Anyways, enough about that. I am currently getting ready to undergo surgery. In fact, by the time you listen to this, I'll have underwent very severe surgery, and the doctor suggested I take maybe 2 to 3 weeks off. I was thinking maybe 3 days, so I've tried to narrow it down to exactly a week. So I have people covering for me, but I've thought it was a little unfair to ask them to cover my syllabus and to be able to really cover it as well as I'd like. So I thought I'd just go online and show you how my syllabus works and how my BlackBoard course works. So let us start. So first off, I'll show you what our BlackBoard page will look like. This is actually the BlackBoard page from last semester. I'm still doing some final tweaks on our BlackBoard page, but it's basically the same. You'll see there's an announcement area. Generally when I post announcements, especially if they're urgent, I'll go ahead and email them all to you as well. Of course, that emails to your TCC email account, which is a Gmail account. So I generally do that, but it's still probably good to check your BlackBoard at least a couple times a week, but definitely check your TCC email every weekday. If you have a test coming up on the following Monday, for instance, you might even want to look it up Saturday and Sunday. But anyways, definitely every weekday. I want to show you some things in it. Of course, here's where the announcements would be, but this area right here, course information, if you click on that, you'll see syllabus schedules and course policies. If you click on that, you'll see the abridged syllabus, and this abridged syllabus just means, hey, here's the syllabus that gives you all the details that you really need, but it's not the full official syllabus that TCC expects us to use. You'll notice here there's one here and then there's another one right below it. Notice this one has a date stamped on it, 08/23/2016. So what will happen is inevitably I will find a couple of typos in my syllabus, or I might forget to put something in there, and I will leave the original one up, but I'll also post the updated one, and that's the actual accurate one. And that accurate one, the most accurate one, should be the one with the latest date on it. So there might be 2, 3, 4 of these under here. Of course, none of these are allowed to be changed after the drop date, so I will have all my final changes done by the drop date, because it's only fair to you, being that the syllabus is sort of a written contract between you and I. There's also an area called reflection questions. I actually use reflection questions a lot. They're good to evaluate whether you got the key points from the texts in my lectures. There is, however, a mandatory syllabus reflection question set, and that'll be in here as well. That is to actually make sure you understand the full text of the syllabus, so you need to thoroughly watch this video. Hit pause as often as you need in case you're losing attention, but watch it in its entirety and make sure you fully get it, and then attempt to answer the syllabus questions, and then you have to turn those in to me. This is one time where the syllabus reflection questions can be turned in via email, but I want you to, one, make sure you do that, and two, I will post the actual correct answers up here later on, and when that's done, you need to make sure you understood the right answers versus your answers. So in general, they're not mandatory reflection questions, but these particular ones for syllabus quiz are specifically mandatory. Basically, if you don't get them done in a couple weeks, I'll threaten to drop you from the course. So let's not do that. Alright, here's some other ones you'll see as the semester goes on. If eventually you see I run out of chapters, if I go into chapters that aren't covered on here, then you can take the opening questions of each chapter and use those as reflection questions. So that's certainly fine for chapters that aren't covered in here. And sometimes I'll give you extra ones, or sometimes I'll give you multiple parts for one chapter. They're a way to earn points, and they're also good pedagogy in that they teach you how to know what's important and to reflect on your material within 24 hours. A lot of pedagogic studies have shown that if you review your notes and what you learned within 24 hours of learning it, your test grades and scores are generally better. So that's what it's about. Of course, they will be due generally the next class day after that particular material is covered. There's another section here called Astronomy Web Links, and this just has a lot of fun and useful links. So this one links to a website that has all 88 constellations and some interesting stories and tidbits about them. Here's a free YouTube astronomy course by Phil Plait, the Bad Astronomer. It's pretty good, gives you a nice review of anything you might not understand. These two are actual courses taught at Ohio State University by Richard Pogge. And this one's more or less like our 131 class, and this is more like our 132 course. You'll see some of 131 in this one and some of 132 in that one, but that's okay. What they're good for is if you have to miss a lecture, or if you just want to reiterate it, or you want another interpretation of how I covered something, then you can go in and look for the equivalent topic on here and find it. There's also websites for Cassini mission, a friend of mine's blog, various other science stuff, climate science denialism, Ask an Astronomer, all sorts of cool stuff. But yeah, check these out sometime. These are mostly fun, except for those first 1, 2, 3, 4. Those guys are really, really helpful. There's also astronomy documents in here. You'll notice here's the front cover of your textbook, because we'll refer to that in chapter 1. And those of you who have electronic textbook or even the binder ready version probably don't have that, so that's there. Here's some examples of how to do some complicated physics problems that I've done in the past, and they're very helpful as well. You might want to look over that, especially before your first 2 tests. Here's test 1 from an older version of the course. I just wanted to make sure y'all could see what a typical test looks like of mine. And there's various other things that I'll put up here as time goes on. PowerPoints for the lectures. Sometimes I'll put labs in here as well. In addition to astronomy documents, there's something called practice tests. I'm one of the few instructors that take the time to actually create a practice test for a college level science course. This is a robust science course for a college level course, and it's something that is pretty taxing. So what I try to do is make up a practice test for every test, and it usually encompasses about 10 questions, and it's timed, so you get a feel for how much time you normally get, and each time you take it you'll get a different set of questions. The more times you take it, the more prepared you will be for the test, so I definitely recommend that. It's also another way for you to earn points, which we'll talk about later. I will at times give you online tests, and this is where they'll be. This is where you can find your grades. There's also going to be at some point a final exam study area. You might not see this area immediately, or you might see it and it'll just be empty. But basically what that'll have in it is old tests, especially the online ones, so that come time for the final exam, maybe a week or 2 before the final exam, this area will be filled with all the tests you've taken so that you can use it to prepare for the actual final exam. There's also an Ask an Astronomer area, which you might have seen there was Ask an Astronomer in here as well. This is a more complete list. So make sure you use BlackBoard often. It's very helpful. The practice tests are obviously going to be here. They don't count against you. In fact, they can only help you by scoring at 80 or better. You can get points on our astronomy points, which we'll talk about on the syllabus. So that's the end of the BlackBoard portion. Let me show you now our course syllabus. So to understand our course syllabus, I want you to look at it. I've got it blown up pretty big. Hopefully everybody can read this on their screen. Most of the details aren't that critical, but I wanted to talk about in broad strokes what exactly the syllabus encompasses. So you'll first off notice week of, and this is January 9th, which you'll probably recall is a Monday, and our class meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So this just means the week starting Monday, but here's the Tuesday thereafter, here's the Thursday thereafter. That's the first part you need to understand. This is basically a list of things that I'm going to cover in the order that I'm going to cover them, and roughly with the amount of days that I'm going to cover them. For instance, cycles of the moon I plan on covering for 2 consecutive classes. So if one day you happen to miss a class and you know that you covered cycles of the moon on one day, Well, chances are the day that you miss would be the second day of cycles of the moon. However, to be safe, just in case you maybe wasn't paying enough attention and didn't realize that we'd already completed all of the Cycles of the Moon chapter, you probably do Cycles of the Moon chapter and start into Origins of Modern Astronomy, at least the first half, to see what you learned. You'll see that our first test comes up during lab on Tuesday, which would be January 24th. That covers chapters 1 and 2. You'll also notice that these tests with the OL on them are meant to be online. The ones that don't have OL mean they're face-to-face, in-class tests in which you'll need a Scantron and a calculator and that sort of thing. You'll also see there's a constellation quiz here, last test is here, and the final exam is right here. The schedule, of course, is tentative, so it's possible to change, but we're generally going to follow this order no matter what. So you can always use it as hey, I most recently checked off this when I was in class, so I must be on this now. If you need to email me, you should email me at wyounger@tcc.edu, and you should only use your TCC email account. I say TCC/Gmail because your TCC email account is a Gmail account. So make sure you only email me from that, and you must include NAS 131 at 9:30 at the very beginning of your subject line. So make sure that's at the very beginning of the subject line, or it's probably not going to be read at all. Also, don't forget to put your name in the email. It makes it really hard to figure out who you are, especially if you leave off this stuff, or if you use a Gmail account that's not, or another email account that's not your TCC email account. Our textbook is Foundations of Astronomy, the 12th edition, Seeds and Backman. I don't really have a problem with using previous editions. I wouldn't go back any further than the 10th. 11th would be much better. But the problem is, if you use an older edition, you're still going to have to pay out of pocket to get access to the homework system. And as you'll see, that's going to cost about $94. If you don't wish to buy a hard copy or even a binder-ready version, a cheaper alternative might be to go to the website and actually purchase the WebAssign Access, that's the name of the website, and for $94 that includes the electronic version of the textbook as well as access to the homework site. As I said, your final exam will be on May 8th, as you can see right here. It will occur at 9:30 a.m. That's of course the last day of class as well. Excuse me, it's not May 8th. This one should actually be May 4th. That is a boo-boo. So as you can see, I've already got a typo in here. So it should be May 4th, the Thursday, because 1 is Monday, 2 is Tuesday, 3 is Wednesday, 4 is Thursday. Do prepare to stay late that day. If you have some problem making that particular time and staying late, speak to me well in advance. Might be able to arrange something where you can come a little earlier. Might be able to arrange something where you can take it on a different day. I'm really, if you ask around, I'm really willing to work with people and help them out as much as possible. The withdrawal policy, the last day to withdraw with a tuition refund is January 25th. The last day to withdraw without getting an F is March 24th. So if you decide to drop the class, which I really can't understand why anybody would drop my astronomy class, it's like the coolest class on campus. Plus it happens to be pretty easy to pass if you're just willing to work. So if you do, though, make sure you actually go through the process of filling out the drop ad forms, because come March 24th or 25th, if you haven't been attending and I choose to drop you at that point, you will get an F, and that can sometimes cause problems with VA funds or financial aid or even re-enrolling in classes, because it might mess up your GPA. My absence policy is a student that misses more than 4 lectures or 4 labs may be dropped from the course at my discretion. That drop may result in an F or a W at my discretion. Also, if you arrive more than 5 minutes late, at my discretion, you might be considered absent. Same thing if you leave 5 minutes early. Again, just know that these are the rules, and how I implement them all depends on how I feel at the time, based on your behavior and the class's behavior, whether you're interfering with class and stuff of that sort. So notice that that is a rule. So you need to be on time, you need to not leave early, and if you really have to, just make sure you do it very quietly so that maybe I'm less likely to count you as absence. Uh, you should, as I said before, check your email at least every weekday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It might even be smart to check on Saturday and Sundays if you have a test on the Monday. Sometimes I get a little extra time and I make up a study guide or something like that. And if I send it out on a Saturday and you didn't check your email, you'd be like the only student that shows up on the test day without that extra help. A student may be dropped from the course for missing a test, a consolation quiz, or if we do any presentations that the students are doing, or for not registering with WebAssign. Such drops may result in an F or W, again at my discretion. So make sure you never miss a test. And if you have to miss a test by some real emergency, make sure you send me an email as quickly as possible, or call and leave a message on my voicemail as quickly as possible. The phone number is at the top. Makeup tests must be arranged in advance. If you actually have to miss a test, just let me know. I'll see what I can do to work with you. It might be something where I submit the lowest test score that you've gotten on all your tests for that test. It might be where I submit the average. I will work with you though. Okay. Missing a final exam or more than one test will result in an F for the course no matter what. Okay. If you wish to drop the course, make sure you get it done by the 24th so you don't end up messing up your future chances. I don't generally accept any misconduct in class. You're college students now. You're supposed to be adults, so obviously don't do stuff that would be disruptive to the class. You do need to have a scientific calculator for this course, and you cannot use your cell phone for that. Additionally, your cell phones must be silenced during class, and this is especially important, put away during tests. If at any time you have any electronic device other than your scientific calculator on your desk or on your person, on your lap, in your hand, or anything like that out during a test, I will assume you're cheating and you will receive an F for the test. I might drop you from the course. I might receive an F for the course. I might even turn you in for disciplinary action. So don't do that. Now, my grading policy, some people think it's kind of complicated. It's really simple though. All you have to do is think my grades depend on my test average. Okay, but Mr. Younger gives me a lot of chances to make that even better. So for instance, I'm going to give you a mess load of tests. I'm going to drop your lowest face-to-face test. I'm going to drop your lowest online test, and I'm going to take the average of all those. That average is your grade. Now, there's some additional rules though, and the rules are mostly for one thing. Students tend in an astronomy class, an introductory astronomy class, to not necessarily do that well on tests. You're not generally science majors. This is a robust college level science course, so sometimes you don't do that well. So we made up a point system where you can do other things that are astronomy related that will ultimately help your test average and make you do better in the class. However, we also require that you do a certain minimum number of these things so that you really get some taste of what astronomy is about. So in order for this to happen, you have to earn at least 1,500 points, and this has to be done by April 27, 2017. If you don't, then I will subtract 10 points from your test average after the tests have been dropped. So you want to make sure you get at least 1,500 points no matter what. Now, you don't know what those points are or how to get them yet. That's okay. I'm going to tell you in the bottom of your syllabus later on. But other than that, the main thing is if you actually do get over the 1,500 points, then it's a Shangri-La moment. We all get to enjoy the improvement of our test grades by getting points. So for instance, if you get 2,500 up to 2,999, then I will add 3 points to your test average. So all of a sudden a 77 becomes an 80, and you got a B instead of a C. So that's pretty awesome, right? If you have 3,000 up to 3,499, then I'll add 5 points to your test average. And finally, if you have 3,500 points or more, I will add 7 points to your test average. So that's nearly a whole letter grade. That's how we make up for students' inability to necessarily do very well on a test. So I want to make sure you guys really know how the system works. You've got to get 1,500 points, but you really want to get 2,500 or more so that you can get points added to your tests. Now, there are some additional criteria. If I choose to do so, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, you might need to write 1 or 2 written 700 to 1,000 word papers. Okay, this is clearly a typo there. It's supposed to be 700 to 1,000. The written assignments will be averaged, and that will count as a test average or test grade that cannot be dropped. Again, that's only if I decide to do it, and you'll get plenty of warning if I do. There will be a few quizzes, specifically constellation quizzes. The average after the lowest one is dropped will count as a test that cannot be dropped as well. So you'll see there's a lot of tests happening in this course. The minimum of 50% test average, that is an absolute rule. If your test average is less than 50 at the end of the semester, even before I take off the drops, then that generally basically makes you have an F for the course. I don't care if you have 74,000 points, you're still going to get an F for the course if your test average is less than 50. So do not do that. There are 16 lab meetings you must attend and or complete a total of 13 of those. Each lab below 13 will result in a 150 point loss from your point total. A constellation quiz will occur, and you got to get at least 10 constellations correctly identified. If you don't, 300 points will be deducted from your point total. There is a moon observation project, which we'll talk about a little later. If you don't get that completed, there will be a 300 point deduction. And finally, there is a WebAssign set of assignments, and there's like 15 or 16 throughout the semester. You have to get at least 10 of those completed with a score of 75% or higher. If you don't get 10 of those done, then you will have a 500 point deduction. Notice what happens there. If you got 9 at 75, 76, whatever, you will get minus 500 points. Whereas if you get 10 at 75, 76, or whatever, then you'll get plus 500. It's literally a 1,000 point swing. So make sure you get 10 of those done. In fact, if you do 15, you're going to get even more points. Here's how my grades break down. You have to get an 89.5 or higher to get an A, 79.5 or higher for a B. I drop it down a little bit for a C to a 68.5, a 58.5 for a D. Of course, you make less than a 58.5, you're toast. Again, don't forget, 2,500 points gets you 3 points added to your test average, 3,000 gets you 5, 3,500 gets you 7. Here's some examples of how that plays out. Here's how the point system works and how you can earn it. So right off the bat, if you attend every lab day, you're going to get 450 points. That's 30 points per lab attendance. And there's like 15 lab meetings, technically 16, but anyways. All of the points, by the way, below have to be in by April 27, 2017. Of course, the lab attendance, you don't have to do anything for that. I keep track of that. Lecture attendance, if you attend all lecture days, you'll have 750. Notice you're already up to 1,200 points if you just attend every day. So that's why the 1,500 is not that big a deal. You get 25 points per day, or you can think of it as starting off with 750, and every time you miss, you're going to have 25 taken away. Similarly, you can think of the lab attendance as being 450 points right off the get-go, and each time you miss, you're going to have 30 points removed. So that's how that works out. There is a moon observation. This tells you exactly how to do that moon observation. It's best to start like on a new moon or something like that, or a full moon. Here's the date of the first full moon. But basically you just draw a circle on a piece of paper, and then you shade in the part that you can't see. And then you write on that piece of paper or whatever you're keeping it on the date that you made that observation, the time of day that you made that observation, where you were at when you made that observation, whether the moon was high in the sky or low in the sky, and what direction the moon was in, or north, south, east, or west. Of course, the more detail you give me, the more points I can give you. So instead of getting 100 points, maybe you get 150. Of course, if you don't turn in one, then you're going to lose 300 points. So it's a 400 point swing. There's also a constellation quiz worth 50 points. If you get 10 correct, you get 50 points. If you get more than that, it's 10 points for every one after that. Failure to get 10 correct will result in 300 point deduction. And then there's a WebAssign. Notice you can get up to 750 points for that. That's because there's 15 assignments at 50 points each if you get a 75 or higher. Other ways to earn points. 250 to 700 points for a book report. This tells you how to conduct the book report. There's a list of books at the end. Feel free to ask me about those books and let me know what you're interested in. I can tell you what book might be best for you. They're all really, really good, robust science books that are in many cases very entertaining. You'll notice first off at the very beginning a 150 word or more typed report / critique of each activity or reading below is required. In other words, you have to write a report for each of these things unless I specifically tell you otherwise. And the only time I specifically tell you otherwise is this one right here. If you want to earn 5 points, you can turn in a newspaper article, obviously astronomy related newspaper article. For 10 to 100 points, you can do various miscellaneous types of work, write a story, write a poem, make a painting, stuff like that. And I'm not always that strict on the 100 points. If something really took a lot of work, I can usually tell, and I can give you even more than 100 points. I do give you 25 points for turning in reflection questions. Like I mentioned before, they have to be typed and turned in by next class period. So for instance, chapter 1, reflection questions, the day I finish chapter 1, the next class period, the syllabus reflection questions, or excuse me, the reflection questions for that chapter 1 must be turned in. Of course, I told you earlier, the syllabus reflection questions are mandatory. You can do a large internet article review or a large newspaper article review for 25 points. I allow you to do as many as you can to get up to 200 points. If you take one of those practice tests and score an 80% or higher, I will give you 50 points. You can do twice on a single practice test, and you can email me, let me know you did it on those 2 practice tests and what they are. That'll give you 100 points. You get a maximum of 600 points throughout the semester for taking those practice tests. So it's just me trying to encourage you, hey, take the practice tests, because I wouldn't have went through all that work to make them up if they're not helpful. You can review a journal article for 50 points for a maximum of 400. Yes, you can watch and write a review of The Big Bang Theory, that funny show on CBS. So if you watch any of those, I'll give you 50 points for each one you write a review on, up to 200 maximum. You can watch the Universe series by Discovery Channel. I'll allow you seasons 1 through 4 with a maximum of 500 points total at 50 points each. You can subscribe to Sky and Telescope or Astronomy magazine for 75 points. You can attend one of my observatories viewings. So, some night or some early morning, I'll meet everybody at the observatory out back. And if you're there and you rate your review, you'll get 100 points. You can watch the old or the new Cosmos series. For each episode you write a review of, you get 100 points for a maximum of 1,500. Watch and review an episode of Mars, the new series by National Geographic, for a maximum of 500 points. You can listen to Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, which is a really good podcast by a Yale neurologist, as well as a couple of computer programmers and accountants, and they're big in the skeptic movement, and it's really a good resource for news. I think if you listen to those and write a review, you will get 100 points for a maximum of 400. They're very good. It might be something you end up doing on a regular basis. I've been listening to them for several years now. You can plot a path through of the planet through the stars. Talk to me about that and about astronomer's bow, as well as about determining longitude and latitude. You can attend a planetarium show either at TCC or some other place for 100 points, maximum 300. If you're interested in how someone goes about dealing with religion and the interface of religion with science, this is one particular aspect of that, as well as some of the books I've offered. So you can listen to that and write a review. You can also listen to these very specific Thomas Jefferson hours. Those are ones that are related to astronomy. For each one of those, I'll give you 100 points up to 300. So notice the maximum on all these. If you do a dark sky or early morning observation somewhere other than school, I'll give you 125 points. Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. Notice also, memorize all 88 constellations perfectly spelled in an alphabetical order for 200 points. And the biggest of all, visit Green Bank Radio Observatory in West Virginia and get 500 points. Make sure you call in advance, get instructions. They can set you up with hotel rooms at a cheaper rate. Plus, it's a cell phone dead zone, so if you go there and you get lost, you're sort of toast. So make sure you plan in advance, and you might want to get a group together so several students can get credit for it. Again, all these require reviews. So to do the online homeworks, they're written by chapter, and they're on a website that is found at www.webassign.net. All you have to do to set up that is you have to go to WebAssign, log in, create a user account basically, but it'll say I have a class key. You click on that area and you put in this class key. Do not share that with other students because their section would be a different number, so make sure they do that. Again, this is a per chapter homework assignment, so when chapter 1 and 2, which are tested on test 1, that means chapters 1 and 2 will be due at Tuesday, January 24th, 2017 at 9:30 a.m. because the test 1, which covers chapters 1 and 2, are supposed to occur on that day at that time. So obviously you should have that homework done by then. I will not be giving homework extensions like I have in the past, so make sure you do this on time. Here's the idea where if you don't have a textbook yet and you want the cheapest route, this might very well be it. $94, you get an online e-edition of the book as well as access to the homework for the lifetime of the edition. If you really need a textbook to read because you like the physical aspect of it, get one of these and order a 10th edition or something. You can probably get those for a couple bucks online. I will try to have multiple observations throughout the semester. I always have at least one, but I try to have multiple ones. You're not required to attend them, but you should, and when you do, you'll get points if you write the review, and also you can bring family members and stuff like that, boyfriends, girlfriends, sons, daughters. Here's the books approved for the book report. There's some really good ones here. This one I just recently read is hilarious. I don't recommend necessarily reading this book. I would recommend you listening to it with an Audible account. You can get that book for free. Maybe the second time around read it. It would be better that way. But you can see how many points you get for each one. They're all really good books. I can attest to their scientific accuracy and their relevance, so check them out. And that basically does it. Again, apologize for not being able to be there for you this week. Hopefully we'll only miss 1 week, but we'll see. Have a good day, and I look forward to meeting you all and getting to know you this